What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. Now we're continuing on with this whiskey room build series, and in this video we're making the main light to go on the ceiling. It's going to be from a live edge slab that I have. It's going to be more this splatted beech or this flamed beech. Really nice crotch piece I have here. So I'm going to make a nice light fit out of this. Let's get on and do it. Okay, so I've already prepared the slab. I've cut it to size. I've done all the sanding. I've done all the flattening on the router jig. I didn't want to bore you guys to death with me doing that all over again for another video because I just made a live edge computer desk out of a slab already. So that was the first part of the whiskey room, or the second part of the whiskey room series. If you've not seen that, I'll link it all below. I'll put it in a playlist so you can go through the whole whiskey room series. So without going through all that again, I just went ahead and did it. So that's ready to go. The slab is more or less ready to go. So I have, what I ordered then was some of this beautiful rope flex or rope cord, as you'd say in the States. It is a 3-core, so live, neutral and earth, and this is what we're going to be using to wire our lamps. Then I have some of these lovely Edison screw brass lamp holders, and they're just going to hang from this lovely rope lighting. So it kind of has a real vintage look to it. We're going to put 6 of them, I think. I have some more if I feel like I need some more, but for now I think we're going to hang 6 of these lights from this. We're going to space them out kind of randomly, not interested in making too much of a pattern. They're going to hang at all different heights, and then I have a number of, or 6 of these vintage bulbs, again different styles. So we have 2 of each type, so it's a total of 6 bulbs, and we'll mix them up as well. So they'll be all hanging at different heights and different bulbs, different bulb shapes, with the vintage element in them again. So that's the plan. So it's going to be nice and easy, this one. There's not going to be too much to it. I'll show you how to wire this up and what I'm going to do. So it's only going to be a case of do the prep work on this slab. I have a lot of splitting and cracking in it, so I think I'm going to put a bunch of bow ties into this as well. So you'll see me do that again, and then we'll drill for all our lights. We'll route the back of it so we can route our cable. We'll have a big area to route out so that we can put all our connections there. Then it's a case of finish it and get it on the ceiling. There's not much to this really, but it's going to be a beautiful light fitting at the end of it. So let's rock on and do it. Right guys, I'm just marking out my bow ties. I'll just show you how I do this really quickly. I didn't show you the last time, I don't think, but it's nice and simple. So I have a piece of walnut that happens to be this width. That's the width of my bow ties. So that's what I'm going with. So I'm just going to divide this up. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 done. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 done, yeah. So let's go into the next one. So I'm leaving a 5mm gap between each one just for my bandsaw cut. So measure over 5mm. There's the outside edge, that's the waist there. Now I like to keep my ends of my bow ties twice the width of my middle. So the end is 20, the middle is 10mm. So measure over another 10mm. That'll give me my center line right there. Draw that down. Another 10mm over then, it gives me the total width of my end. Right there. Now I want to just get the center point. So it's 88mm, so that's 44 there and there. Now 5mm either side of my center line will give me a 10mm center right there. Just line up the edges. Center to the bottom edge, center to the bottom edge, just like that. Now I know it's hard to see things on walnut, but hopefully you guys can see what I'm at there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them done now. So I'm going to cut out the 8 of them. I might need all 8, but I might. So that's how many we're going to get out of this piece. So let's do it. Okay, so as you can see, I've kind of made a 0 clearance insert there. Just clamped it down. Just cut a slot into a piece of MDF. This is the stop. I'm cutting such small pieces. I don't want anything to go down inside around the blade and get caught, especially when you're using small pieces like this. Your fingers are kind of close to the blade. Keep as far away from the blade as you possibly can with your fingers. Bandsaws will have your fingers off like that. If you ever see a butcher's bandsaw go through a carcass, yeah, well, your bandsaw will do something similar. So very, very careful is all I can say to you on this one. Use a 0 clearance insert like this so that the small piece is completely supported, that it doesn't get pulled down inside in your insert down here, because that's a little bit wider and that'll keep the piece nice and stable for you. So let's get on and cut this. Okay, so there we go. That's all our bow ties cut out. I have them laid out. I have them doubled up because I have pretty long cracks. So I have two here, two here, two here, and a single one here and here. So we're going to use all 8 of these, I think. Now, again, use a zero clearance insert when you're working with really small pieces on a bandsaw like that. Watch your fingers. Just be 100% sure you're comfortable with what you're doing there. Take your time. Do not rush it and keep your fingers well away from the blade. You will be good. I'm going to use a really small bit again with the router, so it's a 6mm bit. I'm going to freehand all these out. So just like before, I'm going to mark them all out, number them to their specific slot or to their specific shape because they're not all 100% identical. So mark them all out, number them, and say so you know where they go, and then freehand route them out. Set your depth so that it's not as deep as the thing itself, so you can plane these down flat. So leave a couple of mil protrude to the surface, just like I did with the computer desk table. So I'm going to get on and get these installed because you've already seen me do it. If you've not watched that video, go back and watch it again. I'll link it below. All that work about flattening a slab and putting in bow ties and all that work is all detailed in that video. So I won't do it again here now. I'll rack on and get these in and then we'll jump back in. Okay guys, we are on to day 2 of this build and I have all the bow ties in place. So we put in 8 of them in total to stitch up the cracks. Just went ahead and did that because I did it in the last video. I didn't want to bore you guys with it again. Now, I'm laying out for the lamps, so I think I'm going to go with 7. I'm pretty happy with the positions now. Another thing I have to take into consideration is how I'm going to fix this to the ceiling. So I'm not going to use any brackets. I'm going to screw it directly to the ceiling. I want it nice and flat against the ceiling, which means I'm going to have to screw through it. So I have to find the joists in the ceiling, which I have done. They are 400 centers. I drew the lines where they are going to line up on this piece, so I have to drill out for and sink screws into this, and then we might plug them with some dowels later on. So let me get you in for a closer look, and I'll tell you exactly what we're doing here. Okay guys, I have my lamp holders roughly set up to where I want them, so I'm actually pretty happy with that position now. So like I said, I'm going to go with 7, so 2 here, 3 in a row here, so we have 1 out on the little branch where it's coming out, and then 2 back here. That's going to be my positions of them. They're all going to hang at different heights, and there'll be different style bulbs in each one. So I have each one of them marked underneath now. I also had to just go in inside and measure exactly where the light fitting was going to go, and then find the fixing points for it. So I have a straight line running straight up here. It's hard, it's only drawn on very faint now. I don't want to go too heavy because I don't want to be sanding it off. But we have a line running straight along here. That's one of the joists in the house. So the joists are actually going to be running this way along the light fitting. So they're 400 centers. So I had to measure over 400 millimeters to find where the next joist would be. And it's actually out on this part. So the joists would be actually running here and here. So there's nothing to screw to on this side. So I'm going to have to get screws on this line up here. And 3 screws. So I'm going to get 3 big heavy screws right into the joists, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here, and then I might get 2 or maybe 1 over here. That should be more than enough. I'm going to use some big heavy duty screws to screw this to the joists in the ceiling, so it's not going to come down. So now what we have to do is to drill out all our pilot holes so we can see this on the back side. So I need to drill through pilot holes for each of my positions for my lights. Then I need to drill through pilot holes for my screw holes. We're going to countersink these out here. And on the back, I want to drill with a Forstner bit at each light position so that there's a nice big circle so we can fix our flex. I'll show you all that now when we're doing it. And then we have to route the flex to a center location where the main connection point is going to be in the back of the fitting. So let's do that. Let's drill out for each of our lights, pilot holes and pilot holes for our screws. That's our next job. Hopefully you understand what's going on here. Okay, so I want to drill a pilot hole for each point. I'm going to start with my screws. I have them marked. So 1 right here. Another 1 right here. So that's our screw holes drawn out. So I'm just going to mark them on this side so that I don't get confused. Just want to line these up so I know that this is the joist and these are the holes for the screws for the joist. So we can clearly see that. Here and there. Now I'm going to drill out all the light fittings, just so I have a point of reference on the back for them as well. Okay, so here's the back of the fitting. Now I have a straight line drawn between these 3 holes. That's my joist where my joist is going to run. So 1, 2, 3 screws coming through there. And I have 2 screws that I'm going to put on this side. The other joist in the ceiling will be here. So that's roughly where the joists are running, just like that. So I'll get 2 fixings here and 3 fixings here. I'm going to use some big screws, so it'll be more than enough. Be plenty safe. Now, each of my light fittings, I want to drill now with a Forstner bit at the back of these so that my flex can drop down through the hole. I'll be routing a channel from this to the center point where my center connections are going to go. So I want my flex to be able to drop down through the hole, and if I need to put a clip on this side just so the flex is pinned so that all the weight is not on the flex or the flex is not pulling through the hole, I can do that. I'll explain that in a second. But there won't be any weight on these, it's only the fittings and the bulbs, so the flex itself is plenty to hold them. But it'll just give us a little option to put something there if we feel like we need to. So, Forstner bit, I have a 25mm Forstner bit. We're going to drill at the back of all the light fittings now. Okay, so there's our 7 recesses drilled. I just went the depth of the bit for our 7 light fittings. Now, I need to get my center point, which I need to measure off this line, 17 centimeters. That's where my cables come out from my light fitting, my existing light fitting. That's how far they are off this joist. Then we're going to route an area here to put the connection blocks in. Then we need to take a path from all these to this particular connection area right here. So, again, I'm eyeballing most of this. It doesn't have to be even. My light fittings don't have to be evenly spaced. The whole point is to have a kind of a little bit of randomness to it because it's a live edge fitting. So I want to be 17. So roughly is the center of the fitting. 55, somewhere around there. You can actually center 17 centimeters off this line. So there, that's where my connections need to be. Okay, so I'm just going to route most of this out with the Forstner bit. There you go, that should be plenty. Okay guys, that's the hole drilled at the back of each of our light fittings, and we have our center section drilled out for where our connector block is going to sit. That just gives us a bit of room to make our connection. So we're going to take a flex now back from each of these points to our center location. That'll be our center connection, and then we'll have our light fitting cables that are in the house. We'll go into this. So I need to route a channel now from each of these points back to our center point. That's going to take our flex in. This is going to sit flush against the ceiling. So if you wanted a shadow gap around your light, if you wanted to sit off the ceiling, you could absolutely do that. You could make a bracket and have this click into the bracket. There's loads of different options you could go with really to mount this. If you use the bracket option, you can come up with a kind of a trick kind of bracket that you can put to the ceiling without seeing any screws through the bottom. But the fact that I want this to sit flush against my ceiling, I'm going to have to screw through the fitting because my ceiling is not very high and I need all the height I can get, so this is going to go flat against the ceiling. And because of that, we can't have anything protruding at the back. This must be perfectly flush, so we need to route everything in. So let's get on and do it. Right guys, there we go, all routed out. Again, doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is going flat against the ceiling and it's never going to be seen so long as the light fitting is in place. So I left them nice and wide. I used like a 19mm bit. Simple reason, I want to get 2 flexes maybe in one of them, and I also want to be able to get clips down in here. So this gives me a little bit of room to put a clip on the flex and tack it in place and put a little clip right where the flex drops down through the hole, just to keep the flex in place. And when I push it flat against the ceiling, nothing is going to be up here catching. And another thing just to be careful of, make sure you route your channels away from where your mounting screws are going to be. So worst mistake to make would be drive a screw through one of these channels and drive a screw through your flex into the ceiling. That would be a big no-no. So now I need to widen these holes for each of my lights to the width of this flex, and it looks about 8mm, I'd say. say 8mm should be plenty for that. Even 7.5 might be the, actually 8mm I think might be perfect. So we'll drill out all these now with an 8mm bit. Okay, so next job, I have a 10mm or 15mm Forstner bit. So I'm going to drill at each of my screw holes. So I'm going to countersink them slightly with a nice flat base. These are brass screws, so it's going to sit in the hole. I might plug them, I might leave them. The fittings are brass anyway, and it's kind of has that rope and you know, it's kind of has a kind of a rustic feel to it. So the screw, seeing the screws down the holes isn't actually too bad when it comes to the whole design. So we'll see how it looks. When we put it up on the ceiling, I'll have a look, and if I feel like later I want to make little walnut plugs, I'll be able to do that. That's why I'm using the Forstner bit. So we'll get that into it. Okay, on with sanding. Now I'm just going to take this to 230 grit. No need to go any more than that with this light fitting. That's it. So I get on with the sanding. I won't bore you guys with it. When the sanding's done, we'll get back and we'll get the finish on this. So let's do that. Okay, we're all sanded up to actually 240 grit, and that's perfectly good for this, like I said. Now let's get some finish on it, and it's just going to be my usual Danish oil I'm going to throw on this. And it's actually pretty, it's a nice bit of wood. There's a lot going on. There's some spalting going through it here, different patterns through the wood. You can see all the spalting effect in it. It's actually quite nice. So let's see what it's going to do when the finish hits it. Kind of looking forward to this. Yeah, it looks like a load of bird's eye, but it's just where little twigs and little branches. This is kind of very close to the outside of the tree and the branches, so you can see a beautiful pattern in it. That is a very pretty piece of wood. You can see the spalting line running up through it here. Some more spalting here. And the walnut doesn't pop too much, the walnut bow tie, so it's a nice subtle little effect. When you look up, you'll be able to see. And yeah, that's a beautiful piece of wood. And should look really nice on the ceiling. So I'm going to get a couple of coats of oil into this now, and when it's good and dry, we can start wiring. I can feel it, the oil is actually disappearing into this top as I'm putting it in, so it's going to take a few coats and then we let it dry. We'll have a nice satin sheen on it. Right guys, we are all dry, so it's ready for the wiring process. So you just flip this over. I'm just going to get a towel or something under just to help protect the finish. Let's drop that there. Should be good. Now we need to drop our flexes through. And I want to keep each of these at a slightly different length. So yeah, let's get on it. It's going to be simple enough. So again, we're going to be using this lovely rope flex. So it's just a case of drop it through. We're going to run it back through the channels to here. Then we're going to make off all our connections right about there. And like I said, I'm going to leave each one a slightly different length. So we can cut that about there. Just like that. I'll shove that one through. I can let that one just be a little bit longer. Measure it where we need it to be. About there is plenty. Let that one be a little bit shorter. Again, this is a 3-core flex. So if you're using metal fittings, make sure and get yourself a 3-core flex, because you will want an earth or a ground, whatever way you want to say it, in that, so you can earth or ground the fitting. So that's important. Some of this rope flex is available in a 2-core. But like I say, if you need to be using plastic fittings if you're not going to ground it or earth it. Okay, they're roughly all different lengths. We'll sort that out now in a minute. So now I just want to get some clips in this. So that's why I left the channel be slightly wider and slightly deeper. Just so I can put a clip right above where my flex go out, and I can clip them all the way along. Right guys, all our flex or our cord is in place, whatever way you like to say it. So it's all clipped along the channel now, so that's nice and flush. Nothing can get pinched when we screw this to the ceiling. Everything is nice and out of our way now. I've also just drilled out the center a little bit more with a Forstner bit, just because my connector block was sitting a little bit proud. So that's sitting down now in, and it's good and flush there. Now, I have to separate all the ends of all these cables into the live, neutral and earth, and then separate them into the three connectors, live, neutral and earth. So I have a little bit of work to do here now, stripping all these and making them off. It's pretty easy to pull the cord back off the flex. You can see you can just push it back with your hand. This braided flex, you just pull it right back down. It slips right back down like that, and then you can strip this, twist all your ends together, get them into the connector block, and make sure you have a very, very good connection. Like I say, everything in electrics, I've always said this through all my videos when I'm doing electrical work, everything is about the connection. Connection, connection, connection. These are 30 amp connectors, so they're good and big. Not just in the current they can carry, but in size-wise, so I can get all the cables into them. There won't be more than an amp or two on this because it's all low wattage LED stuff, so it'll barely add up to an amp. But the connectors are good and big, so I can fit all the cables in. So I'll get on and do this now and get it all separated. It's pretty boring to watch me do this, and when it's all done, I'll give you a look. Right guys, I'm just finished putting in the last lot of neutral. So it's live, neutral and earth, or live, ground and earth, or sorry, live, earth and neutral, live, ground and neutral, whatever way you guys say it, wherever you are in the world. So I'm just using a twist connection on these flexes. Now you can get crimps for these, you can get ferrules to clip on the end of them, whatever way you want to do it. I'm just using a connector block because I still have to get cables from this to where my power cables are in my house for my light fitting. So I'm going to have to do another joint in there. So this is going to be the easiest way for me to sort this out. Oh, there we go. That's all in there. It's all nice and flush. It's a good, solid connection. Everything is in there. Good big connectors, plenty of space. Cables are well held. Everything is in there good and tight. You can give everything a pull just to make sure nothing comes loose. Check your connections and recheck your connections. And you should be good to go. Again, if you're unsure of any electrics, don't ever attempt to do it yourself. Always get a professional in, a professional electrician. Now, let's get the lamp holders on. Okay, it's time to get our lamp holders on now. I've cut all these flexes to different lengths, just random lengths, just to give it something to be a little bit interesting. All the bulbs are kind of different heights. Now, I don't have a lot of height on my ceiling, so I can't leave them be really long. But yeah, you can kind of just come up with everything you want to do yourself. But these lamp holders are Edison screws, so they're E27. So again, I have a full video on how to wire lamps. I'll link it below. I'm not going to get too deep into it. But the one thing you want to be careful when you're using Edison screw is make sure that the neutral goes to the thread. So the live and the live goes to the center pin, the neutral goes to the thread. If you mix them up, the bulb will still work, but the threads on the bulb could be live. If you put the live to the threads, it will be live. So as you're unscrewing that bulb, if the bulb was on, or if the light fitting was on and the bulb happened to be blown, you didn't know it was on, you could potentially catch live threads on the end of your bulb. So if you see the end of the bulb there, the threads, the center point, the live goes on to, the neutral goes on to the thread. That's how the circuit is completed. Now, if you put the live to here and the neutral to here, as you're unscrewing that out of the fitting, you can see your hands can make contact with these threads and they could be live. So be 100% certain if you're making these off that the live goes to the center pin and the neutral goes to the threaded section. Okay, be 100% on that. And also, if you're using metal fittings like these, they must be grounded or earthed. And there's a little earth terminal on these. So in order to make these off, we have some crush glands. These are just little glands. If I can open this bag, tear it open. So we need to put the flex through these first. So they screw onto the back of the fitting, just like this. You pass the flex through this or the cord, you tighten that down and it just crushes onto the cord and allows you to hang this from the flex. So nice and simple. I'll give you a look at that when it's all done. Okay, so I'll make one off there now. Again, I have a full video on this, so I don't want to go too in depth into this again. So I'll make one off and then I'll show you one. Okay guys, another little tip for you when it comes to working with this braided flex or braided cord is to pull the cord towards the end. So that here's the end of it, pull it towards the end. That stretches everything out. Make sure the braid is nice and flat, because the braid can be pulled back and it bulges out, and it's a nightmare trying to get through things. So just wrap a little bit of insulating tape around the end of it just like that. Keeps everything together, allows you to thread the needle, so to speak. It's the same way as you would do with a piece of thread when you put it on your mount and you kind of suck the end of it just to straighten out all the strands. You need to do the same with this, otherwise you will have an absolute nightmare trying to get it into the crush glands and through these threaded bars as well. So you can see with the end taped up, it passes through there nicely and you can do what you need to do. So I'll get on and make these off now, and when they're done I'll get back to you. Okay guys, there we go. All the lamp holders are on. Now that was quite stressful, I have to say. They are very, very finicky to work with. I always hate these things, but nevertheless they are on now. They're all slightly different lengths. They look pretty good. They're lovely kind of antique brass, and that brown rope I think really sets off the fitting. Now there's nothing to do but to get this up on the ceiling, connect it in and get it up on the ceiling. So I'm going to take it in and do that, and then I'll show you guys the finished projects. Now don't forget, like I said already in this video, I have a full video on how to wire lamps, lights, all that kind of stuff. So I know I'm glossing over it now, but there's a dedicated video to doing all this. I don't want to keep repeating it and showing you guys over and over again when there's a full video just dedicated to how to make off all these, all the different types, all the different bulbs, explaining all that to you and what you need to do and what you need to look out for. So check that out again. I'll link it in the description below if you so choose. But for now, I have to go in and screw this up on the ceiling, and then I'm going to show you guys the finished product. Right guys, there we go. It is up on the ceiling. Now I do my best to capture this as best I can, but in low light conditions it's very hard to get good footage with the camera, and I'm not a camera expert by any stretch of the imagination. But it's up on the ceiling now, so my holes lined up perfectly with the joist here, and I had another joist here, so those two screws are there. And the brass screws actually look quite well with the little holes. It kind of fits with the theme of the light and that rustic kind of style. So nothing to do now but get the bulbs in. So let's get on it. Voila. Okay, let's get ready for the big switch on. Here we go. Now that looks pretty cool, I have to say. Even if I do say so myself. How pretty is that? So there we go guys, it is in place, and it is now the centerpiece of the room over the oak resin coffee table that I've made. So they are kind of two centerpieces now over each other, and I'd say it looks absolutely fantastic. It's very, very hard to kind of capture this on camera. You really need to see it in person. I have a big stage light there trying to light the room, so there's white light coming this way just so the camera can see. But I'll do my best to capture it and try and give you guys an idea of what it looks like as best I can through the camera. So I'll do a couple of shots passing over and back. But yeah, it's a lovely warm glow. You can look at the bulbs. There's LEDs inside them, so they're all LED bulbs. They're only a couple of watts a piece, so it's very, very low energy. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Really happy with how it turns out. The bow ties look lovely. The screws look good. The color of the wood is fantastic. Again, it matches what's going on here with the shelves and stuff in the room, and it's going to be a real talking point and a real centerpiece for when someone walks into the room and see it. I think they're really going to like it. So there you go guys, that's just an idea of how to build a kind of bespoke live edge light. There's not much to it really, and again, if you're unsure of any of the electrics or you're not sure of any of the wiring, make sure get an electrician, get a professional to do it for you. But there's really not much to it. Again, I have a video that explains the whole thing if you want to check that out. But yeah, there we go. Whiskey room project number 4, number 5, I'm not sure at this stage, but another one done, more to come. Okay guys, there we go, another project complete. Hopefully you've enjoyed that one, hopefully it gives you some inspiration. Nice and simple, live edge light fitting. Looks absolutely fantastic in there now, I have to say. It's, like I said, it's very, very difficult to capture this stuff with the camera. I'm not great when it comes to all that cool camera shots and stuff, but hopefully I've managed to give you some idea of what's possible, a bit of inspiration, and you can see the room. I'll try and get some good pictures and stick them up on Instagram later so you can get a better idea of what it looks like in that room. But it looks fantastic. I'm over over the moon with it. So there you go, guys. It's time for dinner. Time to clean up the workshop. I'm going to get out of here now. Whiskey room project number 5, I think, complete. There's going to be more coming up, so stay tuned. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.